Breaking tonight, chaos in Caracas, Venezuela.
Venezuela has been one of those countries that keeps cropping up on lists as potential American enemies. And you always wonder, what is it that, I don't know, North Korea, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, what is it that's attracting the enmity and condemnation of America, or more particularly American deep state or blob interest? What's going on over there? Why is it that people are doubting the outcome of their most recent election? And what exactly is going on under the ground in Venezuela that means that the American state and establishment is interfering in their elections and potentially trying to install a government? I'll give you one guess. It's oil. Of course it's oil. It's always oil. This time it's oil again. Let's have a look at the various Latin American, Central American countries that have had CIA intervention and coups in the last, 50, 60, maybe 80 years. Check this out. It's pretty funny. Well, it's not funny. It's true.
Here's every South American country which has had its government overthrown by the CIA since 1947. Costa Rica in 1948, Guatemala 1954, El Salvador 1979, Nicaragua 1981, Panama 1989, Paraguay 1954, Brazil 1964, Peru 1968, Chile 1973, Uruguay 1973, Argentina 1976, and Venezuela in 2002. Many of these were perceived as ideologically opposed to the United States, were leftist dictatorships, or were some combination of the two.
Okay, what's interesting is that the legacy media are reporting on this story in a way that suggests, at least an ex-user implied, that the CIA must be involved. It's pretty interesting because when you look at, like, say, Ukraine or Taiwan or Venezuela, they're always territories that have some sort of economic, mineral or commodity advantage. Like Taiwan, it's to do with them semiconductors, isn't it? And strategic proximity to China. Ukraine, it's got a bunch of wheat in it, these biolabs, natural gas requirement. There's always some strategic thing that has to be sort of wallpapered over with. The people of Ukraine need help. The people of Taiwan need help. People of Venezuela, these poor bastards are being denied democracy. We got to deliver. We got to ship democracy to them in little tin cans, if that's what it takes. Here's the legacy media reporting on this story, and I guess let's try and pick out the agenda from what we can glean from their narrative, from counter-narratives, and also, importantly, the history of CIA interventionism.
Breaking tonight, chaos in Caracas, Venezuela.
Can you imagine that news anchor in sort of any other context? Like, I don't mean to be critical of her as a human being. I can see she's married, she's got a husband, probably she's got a family and all those kind of things. And I'm just saying, like, she's so obviously a news anchor that I can't imagine her being anything else at any other time. But she must be like when you're a kid and you see a teacher in a grocery store and you say, wow, sir, I didn't know you existed out of this context. But of course they do. And so does she.
The political turmoil unleashed after Nicolas Maduro claimed victory in the South American country's presidential election. There are widespread accusations of fraud, with the U.S. and other countries casting doubt on the results. CBS's Lilia Luciano is the only U.S. network correspondent inside Venezuela.
You're odd.
Ooh, you're odd.
Thousands of demonstrators are taking to the streets across Venezuela tonight to protest what they say is an attempt by Nicolás Maduro to steal the country's election. Venezuela's strongman Nicolás Maduro has claimed victory for a third term, despite exit polls showing challenger Edmundo González ahead by more than 30 points. The international community has joined those calls for transparency, as they did in Maduro's last disputed election win in 2018.
There's a really good video of him, though, sort of going, we can't trust America. America assassinate their own presidents. They killed JFK. They tried to kill Donald Trump the other day. It's funny because now, because of the way that media works, we can see this dude like saying stuff, and also because of how media works, there's all of this availability of archive as well. Now, Anthony Blinken, like, he did a sort of a veiled diplomatic threat. The world is watching, so you bastards better do another election or just put someone in charge that we like and give us that goddamn oil. I don't like thinking of it down there bubbling away, dirty, stinking, sweet stuff down there, inaccessible to our interests and our elected global leaders and partners. In a response clearly coordinated beforehand, US imperialism is instead using the elections in Venezuela to escalate its efforts for regime change, like happened in Ukraine in 2014, I guess. Washington has repeatedly employed failed attempts to kidnap and kill the Venezuelan leadership, brutal sanctions to starve the population into submission, and threats of a military invasion, all aimed at pressuring sections of the Venezuelan military and ruling circles to oust the United Socialist Party of Venezuela. The key to understanding the political crisis in Venezuela, is that neither the PSUV regime, US imperialism, nor its proxies give a second thought to the democratic will of the Venezuelan people or to resolving the humanitarian catastrophe. All contenders in the election represent factions of the capitalist class associated with foreign powers that are squabbling over access to the profits from exploiting Venezuelan workers and the world's largest oil reserves. Well, what a surprise it is to learn that that's happening. The overall strategy of Washington was summed up in plain terms by Jeff Ramsey of the Atlantic Council. Is that one of those names you're starting to recognise now? The Atlantic Council, one of those think tanks that probably gets some taxpayer money, but also some corporate funding that have the ear of certain political and lobbying interests. Like many people will talk about Project 2025 and say, like, oh no, what are they going to try and do? What kind of ethos are they going to try and instill in the event that there's a Republican government? Well, groups like the Atlantic Council, it's business as usual. That's what they're always doing. And while we're caught up in the sort of drama of American domestic politics, which is, let's face it, totally fascinating, the global stage is continuing to incrementally edge us towards war on numerous fronts. So there it is, the Atlantic Council, a think tank with close ties to the US intelligence apparatus. That's what that Atlantic Council is. This isn't over, he wrote. Maduro has to convince the ruling elite that he can keep things under control, but both he and the military know that he can't govern a country in flames. He's effectively inviting the biggest loyalty test he's faced in years. I doubt Venezuelan elites are eager for 6 more years of repression, sanctions, and economic catastrophe. I mean, it's not a good slogan, is it? Repression, sanctions, economic catastrophe. Well, I'm in. The threat of international action beyond the sanctions. By the way, just check how many of the migrants coming across the border are from Venezuela. I don't know, but the more that you disrupt Venezuela and participate in regime change, the more likely it is that the migrant crisis will increase. So would you say that border security ought be matched in policy with non-interventionism by the CIA and deep state, and not allowing nominally American but globalist companies to exploit the resources of countries like Venezuela or wherever the hell, Ukraine? You can bet that prior to that war or this war, there are a set of interests that are informed of advantages and likely fluctuations in currency values and all stuff that I don't claim to fully understand, but I tell you who does, George Soros. The threat of international action beyond the sanctions that have already devastated the Venezuelan economy poses a real threat that a new front of the expanding Third World War will erupt in Latin America. For US NATO imperialism, Venezuela is already a key battlefield in its efforts to undermine, get ready for these names, Russia. Yep, war with them. China, going to have a war with them. And Iran, war with them coming soon to a cinema near you in the globalist, corporatist, cinematic universe with its list of incredible Avengers. Klaus Schwab, Anthony Blinken, introducing Kamala Harris as Storm. All of whose governments maintain economic and political ties with Caracas. So there you go. That's what's happening in Venezuela. It's, in a way, good that it's Latin America, because I think we've all understood from narratives that emerge out of the left that deep state or GERD regime change is as common there as well. Oil. So it seems to me that war in Venezuela or regime change in Venezuela or opportunities for economic exploitation in Venezuela in some form or another will be happening over the next couple of weeks. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat? We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners.
Hey, this is exciting. We've got a great partner today. It's Rumble. But beyond Rumble, is Rumble's latest venture. Let me ask you first, are you a Sleepy Joe type character with zero cognitive performance, struggling to muster focus and brain power for basic things like running the United States of America? You gotta stop drinking woke liberal coffee that hates you and your way of life and start your day by drinking Rumble's very own 1775 coffee. This is gonna be the best tasting coffee you've ever had. Seriously good, ethically sourced from a family farm in the high altitude mountains of Bolivia. Not in the Bolivian lowlands run not by a family but by a single man still living with a pet. No! Instead of waking up and drinking your big corporation-owned woke ideology coffee that's probably making you sick from the pesticides it's sprayed with, try Rumble's 1775 revolutionary coffee. Support freedom of speech. Build a parallel economy that actually values you and loves you. My favourite? It's dark, of course. I've always found the lure of the dark irresistible. I'm sorry, how can I stay mad at you? But you're just going to have to wait over there for a little while. Level up your morning routine with a 1775 coffee. Sleep all night knowing your hard-earned dollary dues are going towards supporting freedom-loving creators like me on Rumble. Visit 1775coffee.com now. Pick up your first bag. Use the code BRAND to save 10% on your first order. Oh, come on. Why choose, you know?
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.